What's up, REIT Ballers? This is M. Glad. We are back for another episode of REIT Ball. Thank you for joining us. We have a special episode. This is the first time that we will be on YouTube, so check us out. We have Spurleezy back again, our co-host.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up, Spurleezy? Thank you for joining us
What up?
again. And then we have a guest host today. We have Nas on the line, aka the Illmatic. How are you, Nas?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Gladney. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining us. And I think we'll start just so everyone can know who the Illmatic is, man. Who are you? And then we'll jump in from there.
So my name is Nas, currently a supply chain manager with Trans-American Auto Parts, which is a manufacturer and retailer of off-road parts. Heard you guys were doing some big things, so I'm glad to be here.
We're trying, man. We're trying. And so we actually know Nas back in the Bank of America days during the last crisis, right? In the mortgage business. So think about it. We're back. We're talking again, and we're talking about real estate. talking about real estate, man. And we'll talk a little bit about mortgages a little bit later on in the show. But I did want to start. So REIT Ball, we're designed to really talk about a few components, but one really being personal growth. The second, just really talking about real estate and how to get involved in real estate through REITs and really just educate people. And then the last piece is bringing in the sports component to make it entertaining. Hopefully it's an easier way to retain information each week when we talk about the different performances about each REIT, and it's assigned to various NBA players in different positions. So I wanted to start off on the personal growth. So question of the day, question of the episode. What would you tell your younger you today if you had one piece of advice? What would that be? And we'll start off with Nas. Let's start with Nas.
Wow, that is a loaded question. What would I tell my younger self? So
I still don't know the answer until it's my turn, so don't feel.
For sure.
I would say, hey, since we're on the finances and financial stuff, let's stick to that on my end. So in my mid-20s, actually, when we were traveling during the last recession, I made some silly moves financially, and I pulled probably close to, I want to say, $60,000 back then out of my 401k, and I liquidated a majority of it. That was money that had been going in since I started at Bank of America back then, and I didn't even really need it. I just liquidated to like pay off credit cards and have a good time. So now being older, fully established, obviously, and reestablished with my 401k and my IRA, I now know that was the biggest mistake. And I'm talking about mistake because the stock back then, which I had majority of my money in, which was Bank of America stock, was probably sitting at, I want to say $15, $16. So I could have made a double up there, obviously, with the recession recently. That went down, but we're back. I think it's back up to $28 now, but or $26. But it's what a mistake that was. I would have definitely held off on doing that.
Definitely, yeah. So, I mean, when you started to say you paid off your credit card, I was like, well, okay, you know.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. That might have been $8,000 worth of $40,000, $50,000 that I pulled out.
So what was your at least like your most interesting purchase?
I wish I could hang my hat on something. I really do. I think at that time
you need to make up a story. You gotta one time.
I swear to you, I wish I would if I could, but I literally spent the money just on random hanging out, going out, drinking, having a good time. If I would have known today what I know if I would have known back then what I know today, it would have been a completely different world. But again, reestablished and back to where I probably need to be. But a lot of growth left. I don't think there's any slowing down on the growth and educating of oneself. So we'll try to. Hopefully, I don't have any more of these stories going forward.
No, I think it built who you are today, right? And then other mistakes will do that, and you become wiser and wiser over time. Like I always sit and just listen to older people, man. I'm just like, just fill me in.
I wish I would have done some of that.
So I could eliminate a lot of other mistakes. So what about you, Spurleezy and Illmatic? Thank you, man. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure. Thank you.
I'd probably have to go back to college. When you first get those first credit cards, I would definitely tell myself to stay away from those. I mean, we did stupid stuff with them. Going to Vegas, taking out cash advances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just having a good time, but didn't need to for sure. So I definitely tell myself to take care of my credit better um, when I was younger.
We had
So did you win in any of those cash advances when you went to Vegas?
no,
No,
a
no,
lot
it
of very
was
quiet drives home. A lot
yeah,
of very
yeah,
completely
yeah,
silent
yeah,
drives home.
yeah,
Just so you're fully aware.
yeah. Living in California and going to Vegas, that 4 hour drive was always quiet coming home because literally everyone lost their shirts. So
That's crazy. So you've learned, I'm assuming now you're doing better with credit and everything
for
else, right?
sure, for
Good,
sure.
good. So man, there's so many, right? Like when you think about like what you would
Mm,
tell your younger you, I'm like, man, where do I start? But I think uh, similar to Nas, like when you think about all the times that you went out and partied, had a good time, like all of that added up. You know how
hmm
much money you could have used to invest, right?
Yeah.
And like there's a good thing about going out and having a good time, right? For celebrations, for certain milestones. But like, just to go out just because, like
hmm
think about that. I would tell my younger me, like, just sit tight, use that money that you would go out on Friday or Saturday and invest in something, or invest it if it's not stock or it's not REITs, invest in like your own business, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the time to take risks, like, and that's the time to really try to build, what you want to, what you love early on. So that would probably
yeah.
be my piece.
Yeah.
And definitely, and kind of to add what you said, Mark. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have fun, but I learned as I got older. Someone told me to always pay yourself first.
Yeah,
So whenever you get a paycheck, pay yourself first. Put that in a savings. Put that in an investment account. And if you do that every 2 weeks, every month that you get paid, that's gonna add up over time.
Oh yeah.
definitely. And the last piece I'd say, man, listen to anyone older than you. Like if you're out
For
there,
sure.
listen to people older than you. Stop thinking you know everything, and you will fast track your life and eliminate a lot of pitfalls. So that's our personal growth, personal development moment. I hope it helps somebody out there.
I really
We'll,
hope it does.
we'll continue to talk about that as we go through other episodes. So let's talk about basketball, and then we'll talk about the economy. What's going on in the NBA this past week? Any hot news with players or the league? What's going on with the reopening? Fill us in.
Uh, Basketball still is slated to start July 31st. 22 teams to play 8 regular season games. Believe they're playing out in Disney Orlando. They're gonna have everyone there to get through the games, just to help keep the whole COVID-19 situation under control. But just as recently as this weekend, a couple players have spoke out. One of the main players was Kyrie Irving from the Brooklyn Nets, has suggested that maybe they shouldn't play with everything that's going on in the country right now, as far as race relations, inequality, um, and whatnot. That maybe they should boycott. Um, so that's kind of what's going around right now. You've heard from Kyrie, you've heard from Dwight Howard, who all come out and said that maybe just this isn't the right time to play.
So I think I heard about Dwight Howard, and I think that it could go either way. Like it's yes, it needs to be focused on all the issues that are going on, but do they have more exposure and a larger platform when the league's in session, when people are playing, everyone's tuning in to watch basketball. If you're a basketball fan, you got millions of people every night, right?
hmm
To where you can have a powerful statement in any interview, or on the court, or say you have a custom jersey, anything,
Yeah.
do you feel like this is the time to use their platform, play again, because everyone's anticipating seeing them play again, and then use it, for that purpose?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, my opinion is that they should play and speak up. You know, whenever someone puts a mic in their face. Adam Silver has always been, you know, behind them as far as what they want to do, to speak out. You know, they wore the "I Can't Breathe" T-shirts on national TV. So I say keep continuing that path and educate folks when they're playing.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about you, Illmatic? What do you think?
Ah, man, this is so tough. So my initial instinct is to say, and if I were a basketball player, would be to, even if it was just 8 games, even if it was for another month, uh, it would be scary to try to take any of the focus off of the Black Lives Movement. And so that's my initial thought, is like, I completely understand where they're coming from on that end of it. Then you think to yourself, man, if they played 8 more games, even if they didn't want to play, make that impact during those games and during national broadcasts, and take that money and reinvest it in these communities, reinvest it for all of these different, reforms and things that are happening right now. I just feel like that money can't be replaced.
Hmm.
So, it's like I get it completely. And I would initially, my first instinct would be like, I don't have time to play ball. I'm going to focus on making sure that these injustices are corrected and that there's actual change happening. But then you look at it from the financial standpoint, and it's like that money could change a lot all in on its own. And not to
Yeah.
mention the ability to speak your mind during these, broadcasts and while you're playing the game. I just,
Yeah.
there's too much,
Yeah.
there's too much to weigh there on the side of actually playing, making that money and making that difference. So that's
And 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 from a money standpoint, I mean, we continually to hear from guys that are making, you know, that have made $200 million in their career that can afford to do this. Where you do have basketball players in the league that are wondering where their next check is going to be.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
next
Um,
thing for sure.
Yeah. That's
so
a good
it's
point.
and not playing could allow the NBA to exit the current collective bargaining agreement, which could mean a lockout year next year,
Yeah.
which could mean players aren't getting paid next year as well. So it's kind of a lot to ask folks that are wondering where their next check's going to be.
No, definitely a lot of moving pieces. I just consider like for instance the Dave Chappelle release. I don't know if you guys saw that
Yeah,
last few days.
Mm-hmm.
So like as of last night, it had like almost 19 million views.
it's
Right? It
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
came out. It wasn't even like funny. Right? It wasn't like stand up. It was like he just went off, and like
Yeah,
that platform is huge. Like that was like like that was just him making an announcement. Hey, I'm going to speak. So just imagine like with the league reopening, I just feel like it would reach probably more people. But I get
Mm-hmm.
both sides. So,
Yeah.
uh, so what about so we have, I think you said New Orleans on the outside of the playoffs and Portland as well, right? Because I'm pulling for Portland to slide in. I think Spurleezy's pulling for Zion to get in there.
you never want
I
Portland
mean,
in. They give us a hard time.
Love Portland.
I'm I'm a huge Dame fan, so I would love to see him in there. I just know the meal ticket is Zion. That's what the NBA wants. I mean, they've been trying to figure out a way to give him Rookie of the Year all year, even though he's only played half the year.
Yeah,
Would you rather pay
So
for a rookie or rather pay for somebody that's going to make a half court three at any point, though?
I
I'm
like the
going
half
for
court three.
Dame.
I'm gonna go for the
I'm
half
going
court.
for Dame.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
they want to see Zion. Trust me, they want to
Yeah.
see Zion.
Yeah, I get it. Who was the other Rookie of the Year guy? I forget his name.
Morant
Yeah,
out of Memphis.
yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for the NBA recap. So I'll jump in a broader kind of economic view as well as the market. So the stock market this past week, so the week ending on the 12th, that was one of the worst weeks in the market across the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq since the end of March. So all three of those, the Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq, they all lost at least 2% for the week. You'll see as we get into these portfolios, our REITs took a hit as well. But from a broader economic view, markets are cities are starting to reopen slowly. You have some that have opened up quicker from a health perspective or from a doctor's perspective. I don't know how enthusiastic they are for reopening. But from like a business, a government, and economic perspective, I mean, look at how hard we were hit over the last few months. Something had to be done. I guess people are thinking so. One economist or a couple of economists think that the worst is over, while others, from the medical perspective, have said, "Hey, there's going to be another wave, and do you close down or do you just ride it out through the wave and keep everything open?"
Yeah.
So, we had a very strong jobs report, an increase of 2.5 million. There's a lot of layers that go into those numbers that I won't get into as far as is it a true number or not. We still are down about 20 million or so jobs since February, right? So we're still down quite a bit. I think the jobs, it'll be based on industry as we recover. Your restaurants, your bars, your hotels, those are going to take quite a bit to recover. And then the jobs, the companies, the industries that can support folks working remotely and working from home, I think those industries will recover a lot quicker. So what does that mean for real estate? What does that mean for REITs? I think we'll still see some rents and valuation, the real estate prices dip a little bit more before it returns, starts to recover some. And I still think it'll be choppy for a little while, right? But I always say you don't market time. Our whole platform is about talking about long-term wealth creation. It's not about day trading, right? So, if someone tells you they're a day trader and they make all this money, ask them how long and how consistently they do it, because they've burned a lot of people by saying that. And rookie traders will come in and they'll get destroyed. And now when you think about technology, all the algorithmic trading that's going on, automated trading with technology, it's very hard to beat a robot. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we talk about long-term approaches. And with that said, you have to have a longer view. So based on your risk profile as an audience, as far as should I invest in hotel REITs? Like hotel REITs will probably continue to get beat up, but do you believe at some point people will return to hotels? Or because of what's happening with the pandemic, we're going to have a completely different dynamic with society and how we travel and stay in places. Will there be a new business model? I would like to think that there still is going to be a major presence in hotels, just a different type of way to make sure that everything's sanitized and things like that, right? Different precautions. So retail and hotel, as we've said, week after week, they've been beat up the most. You're starting to see national companies start to get sued by landlords. I think H&M was one, Gap, Bed Bath & Beyond, several others for not paying their rent. So they're going to continue to get beat up unless it's a grocery anchor, which we'll talk about in this episode. But all the other property types as a whole, on average, they're collecting 90% of their rent or better. So that's not terrible. You know what I mean?
Promising.
Like, yeah, it's not terrible, and especially if you think that we've been through the worst, and hopefully we have. So I'll continue to say, retail and hotel definitely a little scary right now. You'll still see choppiness across all property types, but when you think about from a broader standpoint, most tenants are paying their rent. It's something to consider. On the flip side, with residential, they're expecting about 2.2 million tenants will move back to their parents' home. So young tenants moving back to their parents, right, during this time. That's estimated over $720 million in rent each month.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Potentially getting wiped out in the market if they all, some are under leases and they'll pay. Some won't. We'll see. I don't think that total number is going to get impacted, but just for reference, that's about 1.4% of the total multifamily market. So that's something to consider. Outside of that, when I think about this crisis and the crisis in '08, it's a lot different. I think banks are stronger this time around. Their balance sheets are stronger. REITs as well. REITs have raised over $440 billion in equity from 2009 to 2019. So what that means, the reason why they do that, they raise the equity. That means they need less debt or lower mortgages on their portfolio. And so that's naturally a good thing. But why do you guys think that that could be a good thing to have when you face, you have equity investors, right? And then that's cash investors for folks who don't know. And then you have the debt side, the loan side. Why do you think it's important to have during a recession lower debt? Do either one of you know?
Well,
Exposure to risk at the end of the day,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they have a lower debt than before, that means that their mortgage payment is that much lower. So if a couple of folks stop paying rent, it's not gonna hurt that REIT.
Yeah. So regardless of what happens, right, in an environment, in the economic environment, you have to pay the mortgage, right? You have to pay your debt. The equity investors are typically aligned with performance. If you have a profit, you share in that profit. If you have a loss, you naturally don't share in a profit because there is no profit. But no matter how your assets and your portfolio is performing, you still have to pay that debt every month. So if you have less debt this time around versus 2008 crisis, you're probably a lot more comfortable. So REITs typically, when thinking about a recession and you talk about real estate investment trust versus a private real estate owner, real estate investment trusts typically have substantially less debt on their books, so lower payments. They can kind of ride the storm a little bit, where private real estate investors will have sometimes between 75% to 85% debt on a property or in their portfolio. That's a lot of debt. So if you're a smaller, a lot of this audience is going to be smaller investors. Say you have a fourplex, right, or less than 10 units, and half of the people leave the building, and you still have to pay 80% debt on that property. How are you going to keep up with the payments? Versus if you had 50% debt, right? And it's a lot more manageable. So when you think about REITs versus owning privately during a recession, there's the mortgage factor, the debt factor, a lot less debt. The second piece is REITs will typically own better quality assets because they have the money to do so. And then the third piece, they typically have stronger tenants with stronger balance sheets, stronger financially, they're more financially stable. So they're going to continue paying their rent in most cases. So those are some things to think about when you're thinking about real estate investment trust versus should I go and buy my first triplex or fourplex? So I'll stop there. Let me know. Do you have any kind of questions as far as the economy or anything that I brought up?
No, I think you're good. I'm following.
You touched it.
And I think the last piece will be what will really shape what happens in the future. How much of this rebound in jobs and everything else is correlated to the government incentives, the PPP program and things like that, versus when everything peels back and there's no more, stimulus, no more government assistance. The Fed starts lightening up on their assistance. Like, what happens then? Do we have another economic fallout? Is this a true stabilized number where we'll continue to rise and rebuild? So those are things to think about and keep either watching out for yourself or, stay tuned with REIT and we'll continue to tune you in there. But from there, let's hop into the portfolios, what that all means for the portfolios. And I know C Webb was a little scared to be on today. So we'll start with Kent. We're going to jump in with you and your portfolio. So
Let's take a look.
You actually lost 4% this past week. So I lost the most, right? So you didn't do the worst. You lost about 4%. I actually lost a little over 5%. And C-Wed's portfolio lost about 1.5%, a little bit less than 1.5. So yours right now is sitting a little less than $1,000 total for the total portfolio. And your best performer this past week was JJ Redick. And I'll talk about the REIT afterwards, but tell me about JJ.
Good old JJ. JJ Redick is one of those players that every team should have. He's typically your third or fourth scorer.
Every team should have.
At least
Every
one.
team should have it. Every team should have a JJ Redick, and actually, both my players that I'm going to talk about today are very similar. But JJ Redick, JJ Redick went to Duke, which a lot of people don't like. They like to call them the Dukies over there,
Yeah.
in North Carolina. So
Not a lot of people don't like Duke, or you just don't like Duke.
A lot of people don't like Duke.
If they call them Dukies, I mean, I imagine there's a hefty following for the Dukies.
That's not a name I came up with, so it's definitely out there. A lot of people think people from Duke are feel entitled. So
wow, that's a strong word. That's a strong word.
Don't let JJ Redick find you, Kent, please.
In addition to Draymond, we are getting JJ Redick on the show.
This is gonna be great.
On the positive side of JJ, he was drafted in 2006, 11th pick in the first round. But JJ has never missed the playoffs in his entire NBA career. So I know we touched on the Pelicans earlier today. So it'll be interesting to see if JJ can continue that streak.
So you don't like the guy because he went to Duke, because you think he's entitled. So like, tell me about the sense of entitlement, right? Like they just because they win. I mean, I would feel like if I won every day, it's just an aura, right? It's just kind of like
always been to the playoffs. I'm doing good, man.
Yeah,
I mean, at the same time, he has 0 championships, so I wouldn't say they win at everything, but I mean, he definitely did win an NCAA championship and was Player of the Year in college. So his resume is not that bad.
Okay. So every single year he's been to the playoffs in the pros.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you retire and you do not have a championship, but you can tell your kids every single year, I took my team. You change it a little bit. I took my team to the playoffs. It's a nice, kind of second place, story to tell.
I mean, for sure. I mean, his resume is nothing to laugh at. So, but he's on my team. I drafted him for a reason. He's great from the 3-point line. Definitely top 20 in the NBA with 3 points made. So, definitely glad that he was able to produce. I guess they produced this week. I mean, being that I believe my entire portfolio didn't do too well, but I guess he didn't do as bad as everybody else, I guess we could say.
Yeah, so he actually lost 1.31% for the week, and so JJ Redick is tied to Prologis Industrial REIT, and your weight, so it's about 9.5% of your portfolio. So it's a decent amount. It's not just it actually, it will move the needle when things go well enough or go bad enough. But negative 1.3 isn't terrible. And when considering how much that contributed to your overall portfolio, it was almost flat. It was negative 0.12. So it didn't really, even though it was negative, it wasn't terrible. And so Prologis, they're industrial REIT. They're actually based out of they're headquartered in San Francisco, but they do also have a presence in Brazil, in Canada, and Mexico, throughout Asia, and also throughout Europe. They were founded in the early 1980s, and they actually went public. They were originally industrial shopping centers and office, and over time they tweaked their investment strategy and eventually became just all industrial. And they went public in 1994. So they filed their IPO in 1994. And, to this day, they're still one of the biggest, strongest performing industrial REITs that are out there. If someone wants to look them up, it's PLD is the ticker symbol. And so you'll also see it scrolling. If you are looking at this on YouTube, you can look at the bottom of the screen, or if you're on the podcast, go over to YouTube. It's Prologis. It's PLD is the ticker symbol. And if you look up their website, you can look up some of their properties. But one I'll talk about today is Vernon Business Center. It's located in Vernon, California. So if you're a Dodgers fan or you're unfamiliar with, I know Nas, Illmatic, he's a Dodgers fan. So wait, real quick, what's happening to the Dodgers, man? And then we'll jump back into the REIT.
We're gonna get into this.
No, I just real quick. Will they win? I thought they were going to win the past couple of years. Will they?
We've only gone to the World Series 4 out of the last 4 years, I think. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on. We got to win one, right? The odds are in our favor. So hopefully this happens this year. We're going to keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Trout, I see that.
So Spurleezy, for the folks who can't see this, Spurleezy is an Angels fan. So I think he's the only Angels fan I know
in all of California, which is amazing. We miss you, Kent.
So this REIT, so this property, Vernon Business Center. So if you ever check out a Dodgers game and want to say, hey, I listen to REIT Ball, I want to check out Vernon Business Center also. It's about 10, because that happens. It's about 10 minutes from Dodger Stadium. It's a Class A industrial building. 232,000 square feet, roughly 10,000 square feet of office space within it. And it's a Class A. So when I say Class A is like top notch, top of the line for any property type, whether it's residential, industrial, office, or whatever. Think about just the most modern technology, all the bells and whistles that you would think when you look and pass buildings. And then there's a Class B, which is kind of like in between, a little bit more dated. It may have some amenities, some technology, but not all of the upgrades. And the Class C is typically kind of the dated, the more dated properties. So in the multifamily space, that's usually your 1960s, 1970s, now maybe your early 1980s buildings, your garden style kind of, you walk up steps versus the elevator, and you go directly to your unit. So that would be like an example of a Class C. So this is a Class A building, this Vernon Business Center to, again, look it up on Prologis, but the idea is to tell you that when you invest in these REITs and when you invest in ticker symbol PLD, you do actually own physical property. The performance of that property, the cash flow, the profit that comes from this Vernon Business Center and the other properties within that REIT, they flow out. 90% of that flows out to you as an investor and all the investors. So you are a part owner of that actual physical asset. And as it performs well, you get it. You get some of that profit as well. So that's the industrial. And then your worst performer was you lost. Who's your worst performer?
Looks like it's Marco Bellinelli. Yeah, Marco Bellinelli.
Wow, and that REIT actually lost 16%. So we'll talk about the REIT after you talk about Bellinelli.
Marco's, like I said, similar to JJ. He's one of those guys that can come off the bench, shoot threes, sharpshooter. He's from Italy, Italy champion, Italy MVP. Came to the NBA in 2007, high draft pick, round 1, pick 8. He's actually got an NBA title playing for the Spurs back in 2014, and currently on the Spurs again. So, and the fact that we were talking about JJ's streak, Spurs have a streak too that can be broken, which is most likely going to be broken this year. I want to say they've made the playoffs 20 consecutive years. And yeah, but they need a Hail Mary to make it this year. So
I mean, I said on the last episode, I came up in the Izzo coaching group, but and then I went to Pop, and Pop showed me the way, which is why we're in first right now. I mean, 20 years of the playoffs, like that's insane.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Marco's a great guy, seasoned vet. So I definitely see him bouncing back, and we'll see how it goes.
Cool. So you had Cedar Realty Trust, and that is a retail. That's a retail REIT, and we talked about this last episode. So Kent's a believer in retail. But as long as it has a grocery anchor, he's a retail REIT analyst. We just gave him that name, but no, we laughed at him during the draft for picking retail fairly early, I think, in the draft. But his whole point was, talk about it, Kent.
grocery stores are not going to shut down. So I went with the REITs that had properties like Kroger's, Walmart's, things like that. So I I put faith in a lot of grocery stores.
Yeah, so Cedar Realty Trust, they start with their anchor tenant is their grocery, mostly their grocery anchor. So Ken named it, Walmart, ShopRite. There's also 24-hour fitness, Food Lion. They have some one-offs like I think you mentioned Ken, Home Depot, Staples before.
24-hour fitness is going to be interesting over the next couple of months. A lot of people are talking about not going anymore. They're no longer going to be known as 24-hour fitness. They're going to be known as sometime fitness with all the rules that they're putting in place.
Yeah, like
because of COVID.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think some people have figured out how to work from home or work out from home. I haven't. I tried, but I'm just like, what am I doing? There's only so many squats and push-ups in my house that I could, what I mean? It gets old really quickly. But some people, they figured it out and see all the stuff online. Like all these trainers have switched over their model.
Yeah.
So people may want to save money and not go. It'll be interesting, especially if it's an anchor tenant in some of these buildings. So when I say anchor tenant, it's the core tenant. It's the largest tenant, usually a national or international company that is your main tenant that's going to be more stable. That developer or that company or that REIT knows that, hey, this tenant isn't going anywhere, right? Like Walmart is not going anywhere as a tenant. So you start with your anchor tenant, and then you start maybe supporting some of the local businesses or maybe the regional players that have been doing well and top performers still in their industry. But in case you reach a recession or anything else, you don't have to worry about your entire complex or commercial property shutting down. So that's why Cedar Realty Trust, very specific, grocery anchored between DC and Boston. So on the Northeast only. And the property I'll talk about today, as an example, South Quarter Crossing in Philly. So all the Philly fans, I'm an Eagles fan, Bird Gang. And shout out to Allen Iverson if he ever listens to this, best player of all time. So yeah, South Quarter Crossing is 1 million square feet. So it's a large project, and they have national companies as their anchor tenants, and then they have some local strong performers as well. So you can look that up on Cedar Realty Trust, and we have it scrolling on the bottom of the screen there. So thank you for that, Kent. I think who are we hopping over? Are we doing me or are we doing Illmatic?
Let's head over to your team.
Yeah.
Okay. So still in first place. Again, shout out to Pop and Coach Pop and Izzo. So my portfolio right now is around $770. It's increased about 13% since the draft. It did take over a 5% loss this past week. We got beat up pretty badly. All of our REITs are negative. But I would like to say my man Draymond this week, after you guys were bashing him last week, my man Draymond heard what you were saying. He heard about you guys talking about him. We had a one-on-one, and I said, hey, Draymond, don't worry about replying to these guys or getting back to these REIT ball characters. Why don't you just show it in performance, So he's the top performer of the week. He lost the least amount.
That's what I'm saying. Very similar to JJ. I mean, he's not a winner. He just didn't lose as much. You know what I mean?
He lost less than 2%, 1.7% this past week. But he is 10% of my portfolio. So I'm really glad that he didn't lose more. Otherwise, I would have shook it up even more. And he's tied to Cyrus 1, which I'll talk about. But, other than hating on Draymond and Illmatic, I'd love for you to chime in on hopefully you have a different perspective than Spurleezy over here, because they're bashing my man Draymond. And I just like to say he is the nucleus of our team. He keeps us hyped. When we have, bad practices, he keeps us going. I mean, he's just hungry. He wants it all.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
He's definitely the energy player. So I think kind of similar to Redick, who's that shooter, Draymond is definitely – he brings the energy every night. It's something that you need on the team. I'd imagine Kent's going to go negative on him if he is. If not, great. But no, he's an essential part to that team, as Cyrus would be to your portfolio. He's every night he brings the energy and makes sure that his team is performing. So it's all about accountability at the end of the day, and I think Draymond brings that.
It's more than just stats, It's more than just stats.
I would hate for any of these players to come on and show you.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, Draymond will come on. I'm telling you, someone will listen to this at some point and know Draymond, and he will come on here,
God.
and it will be silence while I'm sitting with Draymond. Like I told him.
The only thing Draymond's good at is getting kicked out of games.
Ooh.
I will say this every week. Draymond was such a disappointment this year. He had the opportunity to really show what he can do, and he showed us he's still a triple single kind of player. So, I mean, he's great. He's great when KD, Steph, and Clay are on the court. I mean, then he's able to just talk to people because that's what he does well. So,
wow. So he's only good for getting kicked out of games and talking.
Hey.
Oh, I can't wait to get Draymond on. Oh, I can't wait.
Can we do it live in the same room though?
Yes.
Because that way it'd be really interesting.
Oh yeah, we have some plans with REIT Ball, so we will do some live stuff, and Draymond will be there.
When it's time to play basketball, he just doesn't show up. So
I think he's in a rough position. He's
Draymond,
the new highlight of the team.
No, man, I'm always going to support Draymond, man. So he's tied to Cyrus One. It's a data center. We talked about data centers. They've been strong, kind of through this pandemic. You're not going to see huge swings in appreciations and gains in any 1 week because they haven't taken the huge hit that other REITs have taken. So again, your data centers, they're housing the servers, the fast efficiency and connectivity with all your IT and companies, regional, national, and international companies. So Cyrus One, they're actually headquartered in Dallas, but in North America, they're throughout Arizona, California, Connecticut. They will be in Georgia soon, Illinois. They will be in Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, Virginia, and Washington State. So they're across the map. And in addition to North America, also throughout Europe, throughout South America, throughout Asia. So they have a huge presence, right? So you can invest in this REIT if you're interested in data centers and have global exposure. The one that I'll talk about today is Austin 2 Data Center. Again, you can go on Cyrus One's website, and it's CONE is the ticker symbol. And that was, like I said, it's about 9.5% of my portfolio. But Austin 2 Data Center, it is roughly 70,000 square feet, and it's going to be part of a campus. The total campus will be 288,000 square feet. So, new. The good fact, the strong fact that I like about Draymond and Cyrus One, since 2012, the REIT has tripled their revenue. So you can talk about Draymond all you want, but he has tripled his performance since 2012.
That's
amazing. Did I say 2002? I meant 2012.
I mean, that probably goes along with how much the Warriors have tripled their net worth over that time as well. I want to say they've gone from like 450 million to 3 billion.
Probably because of Draymond. Probably because
has a lot to do with Mr. Green.
Definitely all about Draymond there. Definitely all about Draymond. So, cheers to them.
Yeah, cool. So the worst performer though was Ingram. So Ingram actually is 5% of my portfolio, and man, took almost 11% loss this past week. Talk to me about. Luckily, it wasn't a huge hit for my overall portfolio, but that's a pretty substantial loss in 1 week. So talk to me about Ingram, and then I will talk to you about the REIT Highwoods properties that's associated with Ingram.
Yeah. So go ahead. Are you going to take? Go ahead.
I would say I like I like Ingram. I mean, he was drafted by my Lakers. So I am a fan. I hope he does well. He is another Duke player like JJ. So there's that. But round one, pick two. So he is an up and coming player in the league. He got his first All Star bid this year. Um, was traded from the Lakers during the offseason to the Pelicans. So he's over there playing with Zion, and we're going to see if he can become the hype that everyone thought he was.
Yeah. He's I mean, averaging 24 points a game. He was a beast last year. They got a steal with the Anthony Davis trade. We gave him a starting five. I'm a Lakers fan too, but we gave him a starting five for that one. But I mean, Ingram's just. I don't think there's nothing but he's never going to hit the ceiling on this. He's got the opportunity there to score 6 rebounds, 4 assists a game. He's going to be the truth out there.
We have to
whether
get
he
some.
took the hit.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say whether he took the hit or not with the stock, not performing. I think that similar to the stock itself, and you'll get into it, but I think they'll turn it around, and he will hopefully turn that team into a winning team.
Yeah, man, we need to get some non-Laker fans on here, man. I hear so much about how great the Lakers are. And nothing matters but the Lakers. It's like,
I mean, they're the best team in the world, Mark. What are you going to
do? we'll
Title
see.
Town, LA.
We'll see. I see that. Is that a Magic jersey in the background?
Let me turn that way. Yeah,
nice.
It's Magic.
There it is.
That's clean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So Highwoods Properties is associated. It's linked to Ingram. Like I said, they were the lowest performer this past week. It's an office REIT. So Kent, for you, they're headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, not too far from you. They do solely focus on offices, and they're actually in mostly Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville, Orlando, Pittsburgh, Raleigh, Richmond, and Tampa. So an example, very clean building that I like a lot. If you look on their website, is the B of A Tower right in Charlotte. You're probably familiar with it, Kent. The Legacy Union building is a 33-story tower, 841,000 square feet. It's on 620 South Tryon Street. So it's on their website. It's again scrolling on the bottom, Highwoods Property if you're on YouTube, and it's HIW is the ticker symbol. So are you familiar with that building, Kent?
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of touch on what you talked about earlier, being that they're one of the main tenants in the building, although no one is occupying the building, everyone's working from home. They're obviously still paying rent because they're capable of doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the power of having a strong anchor tenant, right? And retail is feeling it doesn't really matter that much because some anchor tenants like Gap and these other guys aren't paying. But in most cases, it is good to have a national or international anchor tenant because, like you said, even it took a hit this week naturally. Office and people are getting weird about office, right? They're saying that no one's going to go back to office is dead. I'm just like, people are going back to offices.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that.
It'll be different. There will be more people who work from home. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Part-time. Yeah, but I think that the flip side is going to be we're going to require more space for the folks who are in the office. So we were trending down where we were getting less and less space per person in the office. So trying to cram more and more people in, especially in the co-working space, like a WeWork. But I think what's going to happen is tenants and employees are going to expect more space post-pandemic. And even though less companies may be in the building, I think companies may actually need to spread out a little bit. So I think it's going to offset some of those folks that maybe are 100% remote.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's that discussion of, working that 8 to 5 in the office. I've heard it several times, whether it was from our executives or outside, but they refer to it as that's the 60s game. We don't do that. We can figure out how to work from home these days. But I agree with you. I think worst case scenario, you'll see these companies start to expand for who needs to be in the office, which is going to take up more space and probably fill that void.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a human element, right? People need to interact with humans. It's only so much you could do on Zoom. And yes, you could still create and collaborate, But I mean, to be in a boardroom together or to be in some type of space together, the camaraderie that comes with that, as well as the just bouncing ideas off each other and the organic ideas that are generated through discussion when you're together. I think there is power to that. So, I think there will be majority of companies will still be using traditional offices.
Yeah, I will
I agree.
say, Microsoft Teams. Shout out to Microsoft Teams. They've really made that connection possible specifically for our company now. So when you said shooting ideas off of each other, sometimes I'll sit in a shared room with a couple of my either employees or just people that we collaborate with, and you kind of still get that feeling. So while again I agree, and I think that these companies will begin to expand and soak up a little bit more space. The idea of working from home has been, I would say, more successful than I expected it to be. And we've been getting a lot more out of our employees too. But again, I think you're right. I think it will bounce back.
Yeah, yeah. So moving over to your portfolio, Illmatic, let's start with your top performer. It looks like Anthony Davis, which is assigned to AGNC Investment Corp, which is a debt REIT that I'll talk about. But first, jump in and talk about Anthony Davis. And besides him being on the Lakers, tell me about, do you like him? Are you a big fan of him? Were you super excited when he did come to LA?
No, completely super excited. I can't say enough good stuff about Anthony Davis. He's an all-star. I think he's been an all-star for 7 years straight now. All-star MVP 1 year, 3-time block leader, NCAA champion. I mean, he's the truth, and he's 27 years old. And I think as long as he stays in LA, I think we have a chance with a supporting cast, whether it be LeBron or outside of LeBron. I think he gives us a extremely good chance and a very, very nice future. Hopefully, if they do come back and play out these 8 games and move into playoffs, I'm hoping LA can bring home a championship this year. So definitely a beast. And you can talk to the REIT behind him, which also did well and is a beast. But I couldn't have asked for anything more to be added to the Lakers.
So now, as far as Anthony Davis, like if they win this year, I think he has just a 1-year contract, right? It expires after this year.
Yep.
He's from where? Chicago?
Yep.
Chicago, yeah.
Does he, after he gets the ring, does he do option A and just go for the ride with LeBron and try to win multiple until LeBron is done? Or does he say, you know what, I got my one. Now I want to give it a shot with Chicago and try to pick up another All-Star and run it in Chicago, his hometown?
I don't think Chicago can do it.
No, I mean, let's be real. What superstar has wanted to go to Chicago? Ever?
I mean,
but,
who do we got to get on the show this time?
Jordan was there. Like, I feel like after Jordan, like Chicago is like.
Jordan was drafted by Chicago.
I get it, but like post Jordan, I feel like, did he not put the bull? Like, who wouldn't want to rock a bull? I mean, that is such a hard logo.
So aggressive.
That is such a hard logo. I would love to be a bull.
You're probably the only one.
Like the red and black, the bull. Like you wouldn't be like, yo, like give me like I want number 3, M Glad on the back with the bull. Like, come on, they don't know.
I like the way that sounds, Gladney. I do like the way that sounds.
I am still waiting for you to name somebody.
After Jordan, Jimmy Butler, Thibodeau.
Jimmy was drafted by Chicago.
Did you name the coach?
Yeah, Thibodeau. Steve Kerr. Who else wanted to be on the Bulls? Wait.
Dwayne Wade.
Derrick Rose.
Drafted by the Bulls.
Damn it. I don't know.
Whatever. Dwayne Wade went back to Chicago, his hometown, signed with Chicago, and left before the year was even over. That should tell you everything you need to know right there.
So where in the Eastern Conference do people want to play then? What teams? Like name 3. Don't say Milwaukee.
The Nets. I mean, people are moving to the Nets. The Celtics are still something. I mean, they're
Boston gets superstars in
Yeah.
free agency.
Kyrie left.
but still.
Kyrie was kicked out. Let's keep it real.
So we got to
We
get
are getting Kyrie
on.
on free ball. We're getting Kyrie on
Kyrie
every single player that they drag through the mud. I'm going to find
This
a
is
way to
working
get them
out
on.
perfectly.
I mean, you don't really have that many big market teams on the East. I mean, you have New
Not
York,
a-
which is the biggest market in the country, but nobody wants to play for the Knicks because
I would love to see
Dol-
the Knicks be good one day.
nobody. I mean, as long as Dolan is in charge of the Knicks will never be good.
Yeah, what a shame that is.
Could you imagine like a solid, like competing every year, the Knicks and like have
Yeah.
like ballers on the squad? Like
I
that
could
would be
imagine it.
that would be super dope, man. Like I would definitely go and check them out for sure. Like I'm not a Knicks fan, but like I feel like when you think about basketball, at least on the Eastern Conference, like it's like the Knicks. But like when have the Knicks been good? Like since like Patrick Ewing,
Yeah.
John Starks used to be the man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
So, I mean, I think when you say Boston, I think people would rather play for Chicago than the Knicks, man. I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
It's weird for me to see Milwaukee good, but all right. So let me.
That is pretty crazy.
That's really weird,
It's
but not
still
Chicago.
hard to accept that for sure.
So I'll go into AGNC. So they are they're a debt REIT, and they were your top performer. So they are very small in your overall portfolio, 0.79%, so not even 1%. You did have a little gain, slightly less than 1%. It was 0.89, but it was in the positive when all of our REITs were in the negative, so that's a good thing. It does. I have to check to see if its dividend was on hold or not, but they have 11% dividend that they pay out each year. So that's also attractive. And that we've talked about the debt REITs. It's essentially a bundle of mortgages, bundle of debt. They have interest that they pay out to investors, right? So AGNC, their portfolio as of March 31st, 90% of their portfolio were 30-year fixed mortgages. So that's $84 billion of their overall portfolio is 30-year fixed mortgages. The next after that is 6% of 15-year fixed or less. So that's about $6 billion of mortgages that are 15-year fixed mortgages or less. And then you kind of have 1% in 20-year fixed mortgage, and then you have kind of one-offs, miscellaneous. But the core of that is a 30-year fixed and the 15-year fixed mortgages. And what I like about their strategy, their agency mortgage-backed securities. So that means your Fannie Mae, your Freddie Mac. So for Matic, from our mortgage days, we remember they call it GSCs, or government-sponsored enterprises. So what that means for folks listening, it means that your principal and interest are guaranteed as an investor. So, they're essentially backing those mortgages to give you an extra layer of security as an investor. So it'll reduce your risk some. So
absolutely.
That's a strong strategy for them to be a debt REIT. If you think about debt REITs, some are going to be riskier than others. This one being backed by primarily looking at these agency mortgage-backed securities. That gives you some type of comfort as far as investing.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference for sure.
Definitely. So your lowest performer. So your lowest performer was
Chris Middleton.
Yeah, Chris Middleton, National Storage Associates, and they were 1.75% of your weighted portfolio. So they were roughly less than 2% of your portfolio, and you lost about 8% this past week with that REIT. But talk about Middleton a little bit, and then I'll jump into the REIT.
So overall, Chris Middleton is, as of when his cohort there, Giannis, came into the league, he's been definitely a standout. He's been in the league for, I think, 8 years now. Two-time NBA All-Star. Again, he really turned it on since Giannis came in the league and started playing well with him. But overall, 21 points a game through the season. 6 rebounds, 4 assists.
started off slow, and I think National Storage affiliates will get stronger as we move forward here and get through this COVID crisis. But similar to that, I think Chris Middleton really turns it on as we get close to the playoffs. Hot hand, sharpshooter. He really kills it. So I think he's going to do great, and I think he'll continue to do good as long as he has that supporting cast there with him. But, again, like National Storage, I think we'll get out of this rut that we're seeing here.
Do we know where he went to school? Where did he go to college? Do we know? I mean, we don't have to know.
Texas.
He went to Texas A&M. He's out of Charleston, so he's a Southerner.
He's out of South Carolina with you, the South Carolina PD Pablo,
he's
baby.
A Southerner.
So
all of a sudden, the West Coast guy with the Southern accent.
He's one of those players that I mean, he's probably your typical NBA player who he wasn't hyped up out of high school. He was a 3-star athlete out of high school. Didn't go to a big basketball school. As far as Texas A&M, he left after his junior year. He was drafted by Detroit, and he's finally making a name for himself. So it just lets you know that some players just need a little time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. So thanks for that. National Storage Affiliates, ticker symbol is NSA. They are on the bottom of the screen. If you're on YouTube, if you're on your podcast, you can go to the website. And so the one I'll talk to today, so they're headquartered in Colorado. They have an interesting story though. So they essentially partner with existing facilities, almost like a consortium. They have this network of existing storage facilities, and you become an affiliate of their overall REIT and roll up to their REIT. They essentially recapitalize some of these owners, so they provide cash. They buy into a partnership of some sort. It's almost like a merger and acquisition or a joint venture play. So the one that I'll do an example of today, again, you're investing in this REIT, you're investing in real storage facilities. The Guardian Storage out of Irvine. So those facilities, they oversee the California, Arizona, and Nevada storage facilities for National Storage Affiliates. And again, you can look those up. The interesting thing I'll say about storage, they were one of the only, if not the only, property type that had positive returns during the 2008 crisis. And a big reason for that, I mean, you have divorce, you have death, you have downsize and dislocation, the 4 Ds when thinking about storage. That's why people use storage. So
and we could definitely see that again. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, with a lot of people potentially moving back home, they got to put their stuff somewhere. And storage centers have one of the least operating costs out of all businesses. So
I mean, unfortunately though, so it's all of the bad. It's almost like it's unfortunate that storage does well when bad news hits almost, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
Unfortunately, COVID-19 has created a lot of death that we didn't anticipate. So naturally with death, people have to figure out where to store stuff. Breakups, whether divorces or couples who were used to living with each other while they had day jobs, but now have to stay full time together, and sometimes it's not working out. So they have to figure out who's moving, who's staying, where do I put my stuff? Like you said, relocating like with your family. Or just downsizing in general. So storage, I think, will rebound and they'll continue to do well long term. But it's interesting to think about when you think about storage and it also plays why it's good to have a diversified REIT portfolio and not just invest in one, right? Making sure that you have several different property types, and based on the recession, you'll see how different ones do. Any questions there before we wrap it up today?
I was going to say, do we have all of this? I'm semi new to the REIT game. Obviously, I've been following you two, as in you two, not YouTube, but also YouTube. As soon as you guys go live, no. But is there any way where we can find all of this, all of these different REITs, and kind of, are we tracking this anywhere?
Yeah, so the ones that we talk about, so if you're interested in joining kind of the the basic newsletter that will include the REITs that we talked about, along with like a couple pictures of the properties, just again, so you can start connecting and really understand that these are real buildings that you're investing in and owning. We can, our email, you can opt in. It's serve. It's scrolling on the bottom of the YouTube channel, but it's serve@reitball.com. That's serve, SERVE, at reitball.com. You can also check us out the YouTube channel, REITball, Instagram @REITball. We'll start posting some of these pictures as well and some of the REITs that we're covering. So that's the best way to get connected. And then we are going to soon launch a newsletter that has even more information. But I would say if you want to, you can look at all these websites that we discussed, but we will, at a bare minimum, you can opt in by emailing serve@reitball.com, and then we will send out the REITs that we discuss each week along with a couple pictures. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. This is, again, the first official YouTube episode we're doing. And make sure you follow on whatever podcast platform that you prefer. We're on all of them. Make sure that you follow there, share. We're just trying to really ultimately educate people, protect people. I tell my story in the intro of why I created REITball, and a lot of it is around turning my pain into purpose. So I essentially invested with the wrong guys, lost a ton of money, kind of took that pain in that scenario, realized there's a lot more people that could get hurt even worse financially. So, and I was fortunate enough to pull through it. So I wanted to make that a purpose for me to hopefully connect with millions of people. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. And we just want to share with you all an affordable way, some less than $10 a share, to really just invest in real estate, start participating in the profit and the cash flow of commercial real estate. There's no excuse. There's literally no excuse for you to not get started. If you wanted to invest in real estate, you can no longer say it's not available, or it's not available or it's unaffordable. So, yeah, hopefully this helps. Thank you guys. Spurleezy, again, coming as a co-host on another episode. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And again, Illmatic, Nas, it's always great seeing you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
We have to find a way to get you back on here, man. It's always great to see you.
Anytime I can help, let me know. I'm here and I'll be available.
All right, brother. Stay blessed. Thank you all again. Peace and love to everybody. REITball, we're out.
Thanks, guys.
Later, y'all.